So today we'll be doing some growing and sowing and tending to the community garden and allotments behind me here, and a wee bit of work over in the local youth centre, Ghairdín, with the beds they have out the back and the bees. There'll be people coming in groups to get stuck in to stick trowels in the ground and put vegetables in the ground, and we've been doing that for a right few months now. The credit for this place existing is with Spring Hill Community House, which came from, it's how far back you want to go, from Father Des Wilson and liberation theology, right up through all that ethos of self-help in the community. And more recently, Kieran Cahill and Bob they'd won awards with this garden not so long ago. They had got in touch with some of us in PPR and some of the groups we organise with, refugees, asylum seekers, people with mental health difficulties, people in housing distress, and said, look, would there be an opportunity to maybe start reactivating the garden? It had fallen into disrepair during the COVID period, and so you have local people here using allotments, and you have people from all over sort of chipping in on the community garden project, and so we took it on. We thought it'd be a great idea. I mean, not just about growing your own food and being healthy but connecting again after everybody knows what we've just been through, so connecting people again safely within the guidance, within the restrictions and all of that, but to start to sort of emerge from lockdown with a wee bit of a positive attitude about owning our space and place and doing something nice with it.
Well, I'm just really grateful to the community here for letting people come in and just lend a hand, because it's great. I mean, I got to plant those sweet peas over there. They had given us all seeds, and different people had gone away to plant seeds, and hopefully they would sprout. And mine did come up, and then they got eaten by the slugs right away. So if it were up to me, there would be nothing in that bed there of sweet peas, but because there were like 20 people doing it, other people survived more than mine did.
Some of us are experts, and then some of us are like me, not experts. When we come in initially, the idea was let's get doing something, and then the question is, well, who knows how to do that? So we have been working with Grow, basically an organisation with the expertise. They've helped us do up a growing and sowing plan for the season, something that everybody can chip in on, whether it's putting compost in or weeding or sowing seeds or keeping an eye on maintenance and all of that. So that's a plan that's been put together, and then that plan fell apart a few times and been put back together again, but it's basically been driven by the groups and the organisers and the volunteers and people from the local area who've started to chip in and do wee bits and bobs and taken off.
Well, my role came about from a connection with PPR from a colleague who also works for the charity that I work for, which is Grow. Grow is mainly based in North Belfast and supports 2 community gardens over there. And I was asked to come along to spare a couple of hours to help the guys get set up here. So the guys have masses of enthusiasm and passion, and I came along to sort of help them implement a good plan for getting the garden up and running and getting the veg in, and also about how to garden together as a group and invite other groups in, because it's not just about growing some veg, it's about the people here too.
No, I love to garden, and I grew up gardening at home in my family, and this is my first chance to actually garden as part of a group, the community garden, and it's just terrific because especially after COVID, and being so isolated, being able to come and being socially distant and all that and being safe, but being able to just work on something with somebody and get your hands dirty and, build something you can see as you're working here. Kids are going by on the bikes or families are going by, and it's just so easy to see who all is going to be benefiting from this, who might be coming and picking some of the strawberries or some of the flowers or whatever. And it's just really good to be part of a group work like this,
the difficulty that we have with community gardens and with public growing is that because of our climate, the wonderful Irish, entirely unpredictable but mainly rainy climate, means that a lot of things need to be started off indoors and pampered and brought on a bit, and then it's a waiting game until you're ready in the season to move them out. A lot of the foods that we would typically eat every day and not think about, like tomatoes, generally need a bit of cover, and they're not going to do terribly well in a really bad summer. So what we've done here, Grow provided a plan that reduced the amount of sort of indoor propagation that was needed, so we could either direct sow or have people take packets of seeds home and start them on their windowsills and then bring them back to the garden. So that's what we're doing with our lettuce and scallions at the minute. We'll have a few packets spread out, and then people are going to bring the plugs back in, and we'll plant them when they're big enough. But generally we started the season with some garlic. We've got some rhubarb in. We're doing a lot of onions and shallots, and we'll do carrots, parsnips, some leeks. We'll reserve a couple of beds for wildflowers, so that we can watch the bees come in. That's always gratifying to know that you're giving back to some of the pollinators. And we'll have some leafy veg such as chard for picking. It's not my favourite, but it looks really nice in the beds. So part of it, aesthetics are always important as well. So it's a good balance for this garden. In our other gardens, where we have shelter and a polytunnel, we can grow tomatoes and cucumbers and some other sort of hotter climate things.
We've moved through various stages of the COVID restrictions. So initially we couldn't get any real access to this site. Obviously, you could only have 2 households in an outdoor space. So coming in twos was tough to do any real work here. But we try to work around that. I mean, PPR have been organising digitally for the last year, so we've become quite adept at that. So marrying up the two, people doing projects in the house. Sweet pea was one of the ones we started with. People could take those home, grow them in the house, tend to them on their windowsills, and there's all the photos flying about and all of that, a bit of a buzz around it. And then now the sweet pea are all planted in various planters and they'll be climbing up the fences soon with flowers. So we think like that, what can people do at home, what can people do here, and how can we do it within the guidance, and do it in a healthy way and a safe way. We've been just developing initiatives and activities like that, and slowly but surely and bit by bit it's brought the place back to life. And it's not there yet, but it's getting there.
Well, it's great because it brings different people together, I mean, through PPR we're supporting different groups, and some of the asylum seekers have been out here working, and some of the people in the right to work group, and just it's a space for people to come together, be doing something with their hands, and then just be chatting and spending some time and getting to know each other better, and gardening is a relaxing thing to do anyway. And it just opens up your whole worldview. The more people that are around and the more that you get to see, it's just really good.
From my own perspective, I had no idea how a lot of food was grown, even though, I grew up in a garden. It was, off the streets for, to go and buy the veg that came in packets. It was only a few years ago that I realised how Brussels sprouts were grown. So it's always learning. But I think because of the way that the food systems are, they're globalised. We're relying on other countries to produce food, and the things like Brexit and talk about borders and trade barriers and things like that is really a bit frightening when we think of how much of our food is imported. A garden of this size is not going to sustain many families for their vegetable diets. However, it can educate people about what they can grow. It can empower them to try and grow a few things at home and maybe replace a couple of bags of salad, or understand how the cycle of food grows, that you don't get strawberries all year and things like that. So it's a bit educational, it's a bit of empowerment, and I think that it's really important that young people now really do know where their food comes from and how it grows, because if trade barriers or if things go backwards in that sense, we're going to need to be producing more food ourselves.
People walk past the fence every day and it's what's going on, how's it, and then the next day, about 3 days later, they're inside the fence, and they're digging something. Some people have an interest, some people don't, but there's always an interest in a bit of a buzz of activity going on, especially if you're going, what's that funny looking thing growing there, and how could I maybe taste some of it? So it's just those baby steps of connecting people. Now, spaces can be very restrictive. There's locks on the gate, and you have to get access, and there's public access through the leisure centre now, and so our sort of thinking from the start was, how do we open up as much as possible and get as much participation from a widest range of people possible within the guidance? It can be done. You don't have to break rules to do good things. So that's what we've done. We've had, this is a sheltered housing complex over on the left-hand side here with 32 residences, all of whom could be doing with some nice healthy food, and they've started activating their own rose beds using the compost from here, and they've started growing their own stuff. So there's a back and forth there. You've got Glór na Móna over there behind you, all the young people starting back. They've got their strawberries out the back, the spuds are in, the bees are up and awake again, and so then we connections are starting to kick off. And then you've some people's just individual, maybe older people or people who needed a wee bit of a steer, getting the help in the area with their own gardens and back gardens. And over COVID, it exploded, the whole connection with your own place again. And it'd be good to, as we're supposedly building back better, it'd be good to embrace and sustain and nourish that ethos that, our place can be beautiful and wonderful and can nourish us.
Green spaces for human beings are just essential, and that's the bottom line. There's no end of science to prove that, and any gardener will tell you they don't need science or public health reports to tell them how good they feel after being getting their hands dirty for a wee bit. It's just being out in nature, having a purpose that's not maybe connected to your job or career or family or all those things that can pressure on you. Just to be able to be out, to potter about, to slow down a bit, to see things grow, and to nurture them, or in fact in my book to rip things out and be ruthless, kill them. That's part of it too. So but having green spaces and to be able to grow on public property, especially when so many parts of Belfast are so deprived of private green space or indeed public green space. A lot of kids now just don't have the opportunity to get out, or they don't see the green space as being for them. It's just we're lucky to have this spot. There's still a lot of work to be done in it, and I think any activity that can be done in the powers that be to create more good working and social spaces to grow food, or for people to meet and learn, is just the way forward.
I would love to see us sitting here in a harvest with people from people from all over the world who are currently living in Belfast, who are using this place now, activating it and turning it into juice and sage plants and pestos, and I would love to see that concoction come together here for the harvest period this year. But even if it doesn't, it'll come together in some way. I mean, our stuff is in, our onions and everything's growing, and someone's going to eat it somewhere. So whether it be digitally or whether it be a blend or whether it be us all sitting here with our guitars and instruments and songs and a big fire and a barbecue, I'd love to see that. I mean, I think that would be really wonderful, and that's been done before. Like I was saying, Kieran and Bob and Spring Hill Community House have done that quite successfully before, and it's just brilliant. You just bring people together, break bread, talk about what needs to be done, and get on with stuff.